Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now back home on the Lal Street, the Nifty ended above the 11,300 mark for the first time ever. Banks leading gains on the index, while the Sensex gained 0.4%. The mid-caps, however, were, they cooled down a bit. Remember, in the last week, we saw relative outperformance from mid-caps. In yesterday's trading session, they took a bit of a backseat. But Ekta, how's trade stacked up today?
Nigel, you summarized yesterday's trade quite well. So, for example, we had the Nifty and the Sensex again, breaking those record highs. But the FIIs net sold around 234 crores in yesterday's trade, and the DIIs net bought around 49 odd crores. FIIs have become a little patchy. I mean, it's better than before in terms of continuous sell figures. So there is some amount of buy figures which have been emerging in the past couple of sessions. But for yesterday, it was a net sell. Now, it seems as though the momentum is definitely with the bulls. We have the Nifty, which is above its, daily moving averages. It's 20, 50, 100 and 200-day moving averages. The Nifty and the Sensex range also is likely to have moved higher based on just what we've seen in the past couple of trading sessions and the fact that the Nifty and the Sensex have been breaking records every single day. But while we say that, we have to be cognizant of the fact that there are still many mid-cap stocks which have corrected significantly, and the mid-cap pain in select stocks continue. So there are a lot of retail guys out there, a lot of investors whose portfolios are still in the red despite the Nifty and the Sensex being at record highs. So that's a sort of dichotomy continues, and we should be cognizant of it. Now, in terms of triggers for today's trading session, the US markets were a bit sluggish. So we had Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, which declined. Asia, which is in focus on account of the Bank of Japan meeting today. So the decision is due. SGX is indicating that it could just about be a little bit of a flattish start at this point in time, but we have big result reactions to reckon with. So I reckon that Axis Bank is going to support the Bank Nifty and support the stocks such as State Bank of India further. TechM also, where there was a revenue and margin which was above expectations. And results today, we have Tata Motors, UPL, Power Grid, Bank of India, Dabur, which will be coming out with numbers. So a lot to focus on. In terms of the decision, we have the RBI policy decision tomorrow. We have the Fed decision late tomorrow. Markets will react on Thursday, and Bank of England is expected to meet on Thursday as well. So a lot to watch out for in terms of the central banks. And in terms of more numbers for us today, I'll be watching out for the likes of Blue Dart, V-Guard, GSFC, IIFL, Raymond, Subex, Supreme Industries. And for Wednesday, so maybe there could be some amount of movement ahead of that, Apollo Tyres, Exide, Pidilite, Tata Global and Torrent Power.
You've given us quite a few stocks. Ekta, do you want to give us a few more?
Well, actually, I haven't got down to the real list. I've spoken about Axis and TechM as well as a couple of numbers. But Idea, net profit this quarter, but that was because of a one-time sale, one-time gain on sale of Idea Cellular Infra Services. Otherwise, the operational performance was very lackluster. Indigo, what a shocker. Net profit down 96%. It's forex and fuel prices which really impacted them. Avenue Supermart, profit 250 crores versus a poll of 219 crores. IDFC Bank, profit which was down 58.5%. Gross NPA was a little better on a Q-on-Q basis. GSPL, net profit was 144 crores versus our poll of 159 crores. HDFC Bank has opened its QIP and to raise up to around 15,500 odd crores. And lastly, another stock in focus on account of numbers would be Gujarat Gas, net profit higher than estimates, 121 crores. And JP Associates, where the net loss is 285 crores versus a profit same time last year. So a couple of these stocks would be in.
It's coming in from China. India is imposing a 25% safeguard duty on solar cells as well as modules. Now, the Commerce Ministry has made a pitch to impose this duty. Anshu Sharma is here with all those details. Anshu, take us through that.
The solar manufacturing industry for solar cells and modules is of 11,500 megawatt, and solar cell and module import safeguard duty has been notified by the Finance Ministry's Revenue Department for 25% for imports of these cells and modules for solar equipment starting July 30th. It's in a graded manner, so it ends at 15% of safeguard duty on July 29th, 2020. This safeguard duty comes in to help boost the domestic manufacturers, as they have about 11,500 megawatt of capacity. Sources say that about 12,000 megawatt worth cells and modules for solar equipments are imported every month from China. India is mostly dependent on China and Malaysia for solar cells and modules for its solar power projects. Remember, government has a target of 175 gigawatt for renewables, and as of now, total installed capacity is at 69,000 megawatt for renewable energy projects, and of that about 20,000 megawatt comes from solar. Industry experts also say that there'll be hardly any impact on the tariff for solar. The last price that we saw for solar tariff was at ₹2.44 per unit, which was the lowest for solar power. Since the solar module and cell prices have crashed in the past 1 year, so it will have a negligible impact on the solar tariff is what we understand. So we'll have to wait and watch how the solar manufacturing industry grows and what will be the impact on the solar tariff. Back to you.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Anshu. Well, more than 40 lakh names have been, out of the total 3.39 crore applicants, have been excluded from the final draft of Assam's Register of Citizens. This is the first time that Assam's National Register for Citizens, or the NRC, has been updated since 1951. One major rationale behind the process has been to account for illegal migrants from neighbouring countries like Bangladesh. Let's hear out what Finance Minister of Assam had to say with regard to this.
I am sure that these will undergo tremendous change once we start getting response from government like Jharkhand, Bihar, West Bengal. Things will change a bit. They are studying in school. They are attending. Many of the people are government employees. They have property. So we have to take a course which will respect the humanitarian value. But at the same time, you have to appreciate also the fact that indigenous Assamese people, their culture, their ethnicity, their political rights cannot be subjected to be threat by these illegal immigrants. You have to strike a balance.
Turning our attention to earnings then, as promised, Axis Bank has reported a turnaround of sorts in the first quarter of this fiscal. After reporting a 2,000 crore loss in the last quarter, Axis Bank has now reported a profit of around 700 crore rupees. Abhishek's with us. He's going to run us through all those numbers. Hey, Abhishek, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. So the non-watchlist slippage or the standard book slippage is at 520 crore, which is the lowest ever for the bank in the last 3 to 4 years. The total slippages also saw a massive decline by almost 74% on a quarter-on-quarter basis to about 4,300 odd crores. So the gross NPA in absolute value on account of lower slippages and higher recovery came down by 4.5% quarter-on-quarter, while the net NPA due to increased provision came down by more than 10% sequentially. So on a ratio wise, the gross NPA came down by 25 basis points to about 6.52%, while net NPA came down by 31 basis points to about 3.09%. Now the loan growth at 14.4% is the lowest in last 4 quarters, but you look at the NII growth at around 12% is the highest in 8 quarters. So the decline in net interest margin has been arrested as of now. The margins which had been declining over the last 8 quarters to 3.3% in Q4 FY18 is now at 3.46%, and this is despite the fact that low-cost deposit actually fell sharply from 53-54% level to about 47% level. The NII came in at 5,167 crores versus our poll of 4,890 crore. So PAT came in at 701 crore versus our poll of 534 crores. The management were very confident that Q3 onwards they should see a meaningful decline in their slippages. Let's hear them out.
We haven't really seen closures on too many power projects yet. I think it's a bit early to call that. I think we have to wait for some of the NCLT and resolution processes to go through. I would expect that power by and large should have an average recovery rate which is probably better than the other stressed assets. So you've already seen the announcement around, we made a disclosure that the board has shortlisted a set of candidates, and we are in conversation with RBI, and as and when we hear back from RBI, we will make an announcement of the CEO. And I'm hoping that I'm here till December 31st, that there will be adequate time for a transition.
Okay, so that's the management of Axis Bank. But moving on, we have Interglobe, which will be in focus today, reacting to what was a disappointing set of Q1 numbers. Sonia is here to tell us more. Sonia.
Well, thanks a lot for that. Yes, Interglobe's numbers were very weak. In fact, the stock was at a 52-week low yesterday, and I expect more pressure today as well. Now, it's a double whammy for Interglobe Aviation. On one hand, the yields have fallen because of competitive pressures, and on the other hand, ATF prices have risen. All of this has sent Interglobe into an EBITDA loss this time around. And, you just got to imagine if Interglobe, which is the market leader, is sitting on an EBITDA loss, then what happens to the rest of the pack? So the expectation is that even SpiceJet, Jet Airways could report disappointing numbers this quarter. Now, for Interglobe, the profits have fallen 96% on a year-on-year basis. The EBITDA has gone down by 42.4%. The yields, remember, second consecutive quarter of a fall in yields. Yields are down by 5.5% on a year-on-year basis. And the revenue per seat kilometer, which is the metric to judge efficiency, that has fallen about 3.5% on a year-on-year basis, the RASK as we call it. As I said, rise in fuel costs, fall in yields, and adverse forex has also impacted the profits this time around. The top line is fine. It's in line with the 20% growth that the sector has seen. Morgan Stanley has put out a note where they say FY19 is set to be a very tough year for the sector. Indigo, which is the best in the industry and has the lowest cost structure amongst its peers, has now gone into an EBITDA loss. So just imagine what happens to the rest of the sector. Back to you.
Okay, all right, Sonia, but we're looking at Tata Motors today. What's the expectations there?
Well, Tata Motors has been the weakest stock in the auto sector. In fact, the stock is now down almost 40% in 2018. It hit its record low on the 18th of July. It's because of the weakness that we've seen in the JLR business. And this quarter could be one of the weakest quarters for Jaguar Land Rover. The standalone business is fine, but it's a very small portion of the overall business. The stock is trading cheaper than a lot of its, global peers. So it's trading at about 7 times FY20 price to earnings at a consolidated level. If you compare this to the likes of BMW, Audi, etc., they're all trading at about 8 to 10 odd times. Remember, this is the first quarter when the company will give out separate P&Ls for the domestic passenger vehicle and the commercial vehicle business. So we will get more clarity on that. But that will not distract the investor from the JLR business because the stock price movement will depend on which way JLR heads. As I said, the JLR business weakness is expected to continue. On the revenue front, we're expecting a flat movement on a year-on-year basis, a fall in margins on a sequential basis. The profits, for JLR standalone and consolidated, the profits are a very wide range because some are penciling in a big £250 million forex loss as well. So that's why profits, you shouldn't really go with any kind of poll. It's better to stick to the EBITDA number. And on the margin front, we're expecting an 8.9% Jaguar Land Rover margin. This compares to 7.9% in the previous quarter. And if you look at, the margin trend for the last 4 quarters, that is in Q4, Q3 and in Q2, the management has maintained margins in double digits between 11 and 13%. This will be the first time in 4 quarters that the margins will slip below the double-digit mark, below the 10% mark. So that's something that could disappoint the street as well. The main weakness came in the Chinese geography, which is its high margin business. Purchases were postponed in China on account of the impending tariff cuts with effect from July. So because of that, the China business fell quite a bit. Standalone is expected to do well. In fact, we're expecting the 3rd consecutive quarter of profits in the standalone business. But everything hinges on the Jaguar Land Rover margin performance. Back to you.
Okay.